Chapter 1. The Valley and the Shy Dragon. Once upon a time, nestled between mountains that sparkled in the morning sun and rivers that twisted like ribbons of silver, there was a valley unlike any other. It was a valley of wonders, where flowers glowed in the moonlight, trees danced gently in the breeze, and the rivers sang soft lullabies to anyone who would listen. But the most remarkable thing about the valley was that it was home to dragons. Not just any dragons, but dragons of every shape, size, and color imaginable. Some had scales that shimmered like sapphires, some breathed fire so bright it could light up the night sky, and some were so tall that the clouds themselves had to move aside to make room for their wings. Among all these dragons, there lived a tiny dragon named Dodo. Dodo was small, even for a dragon. His scales were a soft, pale green, almost like the first leaves of spring, and his wings were delicate, almost too fragile to fly long distances. But the most unusual thing about Dodo was his roar. Rather, the lack of it. While the other dragons could roar with thunderous power, breathing fire and smoke and making the ground tremble, Dodo could only sneeze little sparks. Every time he tried to roar, he would take a deep breath, puff out his tiny chest, and achoo, a few sparks would shoot out, fizzing in the air and disappearing before they even touched the ground. The other dragons found this very amusing. "Come on, Dodo! Roar like a real dragon," they would call, their voices echoing across the valley. Sometimes, they would gather in groups and practice their roars together, shaking the trees and bouncing stones across the riverbanks. Dodo would watch from afar, his heart sinking a little each time. He wanted so badly to be strong and brave, to roar like the others, but no matter how hard he tried, nothing seemed to work. Dodo's best friend was a tiny squirrel named Pippin, who lived in a tree near the riverbank. Pippin was clever and quick, with a bushy tail that twitched at every sound. He loved Dodo just the way he was, and often tried to cheer him up. "Don't worry, Dodo," Pippin would say, offering a shiny acorn as a gift. "You're the only dragon I know who can sneeze sparks." "That's special," Dodo would smile weakly, grateful for Pippin's encouragement, but still, a tiny ache lingered in his heart. He wanted to be brave, to be strong, to be noticed not for sneezing sparks, but for something truly magnificent, like the other dragons. One bright morning, as the valley was bathed in the golden glow of sunrise, the dragons gathered near the river for their daily practice. The air was alive with the sounds of wings flapping and the ground trembling beneath mighty roars. Dodo hovered nervously at the edge of the gathering, trying not to be noticed. He took a deep breath, ready to join in. But as he opened his mouth to roar, only a faint achoo escaped, sending a few sparks fizzing into the air. The other dragons paused, some snickering, some shaking their heads. Dodo's cheeks burned, and he fluttered his wings and flew away, retreating to a quiet spot behind a cluster of trees. Pippin scampered after him, worry in his tiny eyes. "Dodo, don't be sad," he squeaked. "Maybe you just need a little practice." Dodo sighed. "I've practiced every day, Pippin. I don't know why I can't roar. I want to help the valley, but everyone laughs at me. I'm too small. Too weak? Nothing." Pippin's eyes shone with determination. "You're not nothing, Dodo. You're my friend. And friends are never nothing. Maybe your roar isn't what everyone expects, but that doesn't mean you can't do something amazing." Dodo looked at Pippin and felt a tiny flicker of hope. He wanted to believe it, but the ache in his chest told him it was hard. Still, he decided to keep practicing in secret, far away from the other dragon's eyes. Every morning, while the valley awoke and the rivers sang, Dodo would take a deep breath, close his eyes, and hum softly, hoping that one day, his voice or something like it would be heard. Days turned into weeks, and the valley remained peaceful. The sun rose and set over the sparkling rivers, and the flowers continued to bloom, their colors richer than any dragon could imagine. But then, one evening, something unusual happened. A dark cloud appeared over the valley, bigger and darker than any storm Dodo had ever seen. It hovered silently at first, then began to churn and swirl, casting a shadow over the valley that made the flowers droop and the rivers ripple nervously. The elder dragons gathered near the center of the valley, their wings glinting in the fading sunlight. The oldest of them, a dragon named Thalor, with scales that gleamed like silver in the twilight, raised his claw to silence the others. "This storm is no ordinary storm," he said in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "It comes with danger. We must prepare the valley." The other dragons nodded, their eyes wide with concern. Dodo hovered quietly at the back, feeling a mixture of fear and curiosity. He had never seen the elders so serious. "What can we do?" he whispered to Pippin, who clung to a branch nearby. Pippin's tail twitched. "Maybe there's something we can do. Dodo, maybe you can help." Dodo's eyes widened. "Me? Help! I can't even roar properly." "Sometimes helping doesn't mean being loud or strong," Pippin said gently. "Sometimes it's about being brave in other ways." The next morning, the storm cloud had grown even larger, stretching across the sky like a dark blanket. The elder dragons tried to drive it away with their roars, breathing fire and wind. But the cloud seemed almost alive, twisting and moving as if it had a mind of its own. The villagers below hid in their homes, peeking out nervously as lightning flickered and thunder rumbled. Dodo watched from a distance, feeling a strange pull in his chest. He wanted to run, to hide as usual. But something inside him stirred a tiny spark of courage that he had never felt before. He remembered Pippin's words. Sometimes helping doesn't mean being loud or strong. Maybe he could help in a different way. With a deep breath, Dodo stepped forward. He closed his eyes and concentrated, letting the hum he had been practicing in secret rise from deep within him. At first, it was soft, barely audible over the roar of the other dragons. But as he continued, the hum grew steadier, filled with warmth, and carried a strange, magical power.
The sparks from his sneezes danced along with the hum, twinkling like tiny stars in the air. The storm cloud shuddered.
It twisted and turned, following the rhythm of Dodo's song. Slowly, the darkness began to break apart, and the lightning faded.
The rain stopped before it could touch the valley.
The villagers, peeking out from their homes, gasped in awe. The elder dragons looked at Dodo with wide eyes. "It's working," Valor whispered. Dodo opened his eyes, feeling a warmth in his chest he had never known. He realized that even though he couldn't roar like the others, his own unique voice, his hum, his tiny sparks could make a difference. The storm cloud finally dissipated, leaving the valley bathed in sunlight, brighter and more beautiful than ever. The villagers cheered, the other dragons clapped their wings, and Pippin chatted excitedly. "You did it, Dodo! You really helped the valley." Dodo blushed, but smiled, feeling a sense of pride and joy. For the first time, he understood that being himself was more powerful than trying to be anyone else. And from that day on, whenever the valley faced a challenge, Dodo's hum would rise above the mountains, filling the air with magic, courage, and hope. And so, the tiny dragon who once only sneezed sparks became a hero not with a roar, but with a song, proving that even the smallest voice could make the biggest difference.